My friends, imagine you are standing before a mirror, not one that reflects merely your outward form, but one that reveals the deepest currents of your soul. In that mirror you may find the face of someone who is meant for you, not because of circumstance or design, but because of an invisible alignment within the collective unconscious. There are moments in life which, at first glance, appear as mere coincidences. A chance encounter, a word overheard at just the right moment, a person appearing precisely when the soul aches for connection. But to call these events coincidences would be to overlook the deeper truth pulsing beneath the surface of reality. These are not accidents, they are signals from a field of meaning that transcends the intellect, a field in which the psyche and the world mirror one another, speaking a language older than thought. When someone is meant for you, this language begins to speak. Not in the form of declarations or grand signs, but in subtle, haunting familiarity. You might meet them for the first time and feel as though you are remembering rather than discovering. Their presence evokes something dormant in you, an echo, a symbol, a stir of recognition that seems to rise not from the eyes, but from the depths of the unconscious. You did not think them into being. You knew them before you understood why. There is a mystery that surrounds such meetings. They occur outside the grasp of planning, beyond the logic of cause and effect. The circumstances might be mundane, passing on a street, introduced by a mutual friend, or drawn together through some common task, but the inner experience of the encounter is anything but ordinary. It is charged, alive, meaningful. The soul feels as though it has stepped into alignment with something larger than itself, something both ancient and intensely personal. This experience cannot be fabricated, nor can it be pursued like a goal. It happens when the psyche is prepared, often after a long night of the soul, when the ego's illusions have cracked and the deeper self is ready to emerge. At such moments, the world outside begins to reflect the transformations within. This is the nature of soul recognition, not that the other person completes you, but that their appearance signals that you are beginning to remember who you truly are. The person meant for you does not arrive to rescue you from your loneliness, nor do they answer the wishful fantasies of the ego. Rather, their presence disturbs and awakens. You may feel shaken, even unsettled. This is not infatuation, which fades under scrutiny. It is a deeper stirring, a gravitational pull between two unconscious landscapes. The sense of familiarity is not based on shared history, but on a shared symbolic resonance. It is as though you have met in the dreamscape long before your paths crossed in waking life. In these encounters, the psyche does not lie. Even if the outer mind resists or hesitates, the unconscious knows. Dreams may shift, symbols may recur, and the intuition begins to whisper. You might notice the same numbers, the same names, the same moments repeating until you are forced to pay attention. The world begins to behave like a mirror, and you find yourself drawn into a dialogue between the seen and the unseen. This is not magic, it is not superstition, it is the soul's method of communication. In these synchronistic meetings, one becomes aware of a guiding pattern, an invisible architecture that binds the inner and outer worlds, and through that architecture, people appear who are not only significant, but necessary, not as possessions, not as fantasies fulfilled, but as catalysts, figures who awaken aspects of the self that could not have been awakened alone. Yet this knowing is quiet, it does not shout. It emerges slowly in silences and gestures, in a glance held a second too long, in a conversation that lingers far beyond its natural end. It grows in the soil of shared inner work, through pain and transformation, not just through joy. The person meant for you will not arrive adorned in perfection. Rather, they will carry the exact imperfections necessary to provoke your own becoming. We recognize them not because they are easy to love, but because something in us says, yes, this is mine to meet. That yes is not always comfortable. Often it demands the dismantling of old identities, the softening of defenses, and the courage to stand unmasked. But it is real. It moves from the deepest core of being. And it is that authenticity, that undeniable inner knowing, which tells us someone has arrived who belongs, not in the sense of ownership, but in the sacred rhythm of the soul's unfolding. And so, when you feel it, when time bends, when symbols repeat, when something in the other awakens the forgotten in you, do not dismiss it as chance. It may be the moment your soul has waited for. It may be the meeting in which your unconscious whispers back to the world, "I am ready." There is a curious pattern in the relationships that shape us most deeply. They are rarely the ones that offer only ease or affirmation. Instead, they seem to pierce something hidden within us, stirring conflict, tension, even pain. Yet through that disturbance, something vital is revealed. The soul does not seek comfort, it seeks truth. And those who are truly meant for us do not simply reflect our beauty, but awaken the darkness we have long refused to face. They do not flatter, they mirror. Within every individual lives a shadow, the rejected, denied, and unlived parts of the self. It is not evil in itself, but it is what we have not yet accepted, what we fear, what we suppress. And though we may avoid looking inward, the shadow finds a way to be seen. Often it chooses the form of another human being, someone who walks into our lives and, without meaning to, holds up a mirror so precise that we are forced to confront who we are beneath the mask. This is why the one who is truly meant for you will not simply make you feel seen, they will make you see. Their presence brings intensity that cannot be explained through surface compatibility. Instead, it is felt in the tension between your persona and your soul. They challenge your self-image. They call forward the very aspects of you that are waiting to be integrated, the ones buried in silence, shame, or fear. And in doing so, they become a vessel for your transformation. You may find yourself inexplicably triggered, deeply drawn, or unsettled in their company. This is not dysfunction, it is revelation. The unconscious does not speak in logic, it speaks in emotion, in resistance, in fascination. These responses are not accidents, they are signposts. When the shadow is touched, it reacts. And when someone can reach that depth within you, it is not because they are perfect, but because they are perfectly suited to awaken the inner work you are meant to do. In truth, we do not fall in love with someone's charm or appearance. We fall in love with the parts of ourselves they awaken, and often that awakening begins with the shadow. They see you in ways you have not seen yourself. They say things that echo old wounds. They behave in ways that unsettle your equilibrium, and in this disturbance you are given a choice to defend the ego and retreat, or to step into the discomfort and meet the self that is waiting beyond it. This process is not romantic in the conventional sense. It is alchemical. It burns away illusion, strips the false layers, and reveals what has long been hidden. But in fire of such connection, something extraordinary occurs. The soul begins to remember its wholeness. You are no longer divided between the person you show to the world and the one you hide from it. Through the reflection of the other, you begin to reclaim what is yours, your grief, your rage, your longing, your tenderness. The one who is meant for you will not rescue you from your shadow. They will stand beside it. They will not fix it or flee from it, but will hold space for it to speak. They will speak truths that unsettle and stay when it would be easier to run. They will not love only your light, but will remain present when your darker self emerges, knowing that it too is part of the whole. To truly love is to witness the full spectrum of another, and to be truly loved is to be seen not only in your strength, but in your struggle. The shadow is not a flaw in the connection. It is the doorway through which real connection begins. It is the test of authenticity, for if someone can see your darkness and remain, not to tolerate it, but to understand it, then you have touched a love that is not based in fantasy but in soul. And so, the presence of the shadow in relationship is not a sign of failure but of possibility. It invites growth, not destruction. It is not the end, it is the threshold. Those who trigger our deepest fears are often the ones who carry the keys to our liberation. not because they complete us, but because they help us meet the parts of ourselves we left behind. In the end, to meet another in truth is to meet the self, and those who mirror your shadow with clarity, patience, and depth are not threats, they are guides, for only through such reflection can the unconscious become conscious. Only through the mirror of true connection can you begin the great work of becoming whole. There are those who believe fate is something that happens to them, a fixed thread spun by unseen hands, pulling them blindly through life. But such a view is far too passive, far too shallow to grasp the profound relationship between the inner world and the events that unfold around us. Fate is not a sentence, it is a summons, it is the call to become who you are meant to be, and that becoming is not automatic. It requires consciousness, it requires choice, it requires the courage to walk into the fire of your own transformation, the path toward the self. Process of individuation is not separate from fate, it is fate's true form. It is not that your future is written, but that your soul holds a particular shape, a unique pattern of becoming, and your task is not to invent it, but to discover it. The outer events of life, meetings, losses, challenges, synchronicities, are not distractions from that path. They are the very path itself. They carry the symbols, the signs, the pressures that shape the raw material of the psyche into its destined form. There is a quiet intelligence beneath the surface of your experiences. What seems random or cruel often holds a hidden necessity. The people you are drawn to, the patterns you repeat, the dreams that haunt you, these are not mere background noise. They are the language of the unconscious, whispering from below, urging you toward wholeness. And when you ignore these whispers, when you deny the truth that stirs beneath your personality, that is when fate appears to turn against you, not as punishment, but as redirection. What you refuse to face inwardly, you will meet again and again outwardly. What you repress, you will project. What you avoid will return, often in more painful form, until you are forced to recognize that the world is not separate from the self. It is the mirror of your inner state. In this way, fate becomes the outward expression of your unconscious life. It is not a puppeteer, but a reflection. It gives form to what lies unexamined within. To walk the path of individuation, then, is not to escape fate, but to engage it fully, to see in every moment, every encounter, the raw material for self, becoming. The one who is meant for you does not appear as a gift from the sky, but as a mirror to your destiny. Their presence awakens something dormant, something forgotten. They do not give you a path, they reveal that you were already walking it. Their face becomes the threshold between your current self and the self that longs to emerge. This awakening is rarely gentle, often it brings disruption. It dissolves the structures that once gave you certainty, and exposes the lies you have told yourself. It tears at the roles you've played, and asks you to stand naked before the unknown. But it is precisely this undoing that makes space for the true self to emerge. In this way, fate strips you only of what was false. What remains is essential, and so we come to see that fate is not some distant force that controls us from afar. It is intimate. It speaks through dreams, through longing, through pain. It speaks through the person you cannot forget, through the path you resist but cannot avoid. It speaks through that deep inner knowing that something in you is not yet lived, not yet named, and it will continue to speak until you listen, until you turn inward and ask not what life owes you, but what life is asking of you. Individuation is not a solitary pursuit. Others are sent not only to love you but to awaken you. Some will challenge your defenses, others will ignite your passions. A few rare souls will recognize you so deeply that you begin to recognize yourself. These meetings are not random. They are part of the great unfolding. They are moments in which the soul remembers its design and begins to shape itself around that memory. In the end, fate is not what happens to you. It is what calls you to become. And when you answer that call, not with resistance but with reverence, you begin to participate in your own becoming. You begin to walk not in the shadow of fate, but in its light. You are no longer Pulled by the current of unconscious patterns, you move with intention, guided by something older and wiser than the mind. That is the true path, not a destination, but a continual unfolding of the self in alignment with the soul's deep rhythm, and in that rhythm everything begins to make sense. There is a peculiar illusion in the modern mind that transformation is a solitary act, that one retreats inward, meditates, studies, endures, and emerges somehow whole. But the truth is far more complex and far more demanding. The psyche does not grow in isolation. It grows through contact, through friction, through the undeniable presence of another whose being strikes a chord so deep within you that something old begins to die and something unknown begins to awaken. No one escapes transformation if they truly love, for love, real love, not possession, not fantasy, requires the death of who you were. When two souls meet at depth, there is not merely connection, but collision. What you have hidden comes to light, what you have denied demands expression. The other becomes not simply a companion, but a crucible. Through them you are broken open. In such a meeting the masks falter. You may attempt to present the curated self. The version you've learned is lovable or safe, but it will not hold. The person who touches your essence will not be content with your surface. They will see past it, often without effort, and in that gaze, in that unsettling recognition, lies the first moment of transformation, the realization that your performance is no longer enough. You are called to something real. This calling is not comfortable. It may come with fear, resistance, even the urge to run. But beneath that fear is a knowing, a sense that this encounter is significant in ways that defy reason. It is not what the other person does or says, it is how your soul reacts. Something ancient within you stirs. You feel it not just in your heart, but in your dreams, your body, your very being. You are being summoned, not toward the other, but toward your own becoming. Relationship is not merely a stage for emotion. It is the arena where the unconscious becomes conscious. The dynamics that arise, the projections, the fears, the longings, are not nuisances to be resolved. They are messages. Each trigger is a teacher, each misunderstanding a mirror. The other becomes a kind of sacred adversary, forcing you to confront what you have disowned. They awaken not only love, but shadow, not only comfort, but chaos. Yet it is in this chaos that the soul finds its edge. Real growth does not happen when things are easy. It happens when your familiar structures are threatened, when your inner architecture begins to crack under the pressure of presence. Through the relationship, you begin to notice the parts of yourself that are still fragile, still defensive, still shaped by old wounds. And if you are willing to stay, not just in the relationship, but in the discomfort, begin to change. This change is not linear. It moves in spirals. You will revisit the same patterns, but each time with greater awareness. The other person, too, will be changed, for true connection is never one-sided. Just as you see them, they see you. Just as they awaken your shadow, you awaken theirs. If the bond is strong enough to hold this mutual unveiling, both are transformed, not into idealized versions of themselves, but into something more honest, more whole. But the path is narrow. Many turn away when the work becomes too hard, when the illusions break, when the love begins to resemble a mirror more than a dream. It takes a rare kind of courage to love not for validation, but for truth, to remain when everything inside you wants to protect the old self. Yet those who endure, not passively, but with conscious presence, emerge changed in ways no solitary path could offer. What is essential to understand is that transformation through relationship is not about becoming someone else. It is about becoming yourself, fully, deeply, without apology. The relationship does not give you identity. It reveals the identity that was buried beneath fear and conditioning. And this revelation is mutual. You are not only being seen, you are seeing. You begin to perceive the other beyond their roles, beyond your projections. You begin to meet soul to soul, and so the one who is meant for you is not the one who completes you. They are the one who challenges you to complete yourself, not through instruction but through presence, not by fixing you but by standing with you as you unravel. They are the one who enters your life not to rescue you from pain, but to walk with you through the fire of your own becoming. In this fire, love is no longer a feeling, it is an act of alchemy, a sacred process through which the ego is tempered, the shadow is integrated, and the soul remembers its own shape. And when two beings undergo this transformation together, they do not simply love, they evolve, not into something new, but into something true. So, when that person appears, not draped in perfection, but brimming with the power to stir both your light and your darkness, do not turn away. Embrace the synchronistic moment, answer the call of your soul, because when someone is truly meant for you, you will know, not in dreamy fantasy, but in the primal language of your unconscious. Embrace that knowing, for it is the pulse of your individuation, your true becoming.